My name is Sania. I grew up in a small town in India where English was not the language of the streets, the schools, or even the dreams. My family spoke Urdu at home. The TV ran in Hindi. And English? That was the language we feared more than loved. It was the language of the rich, the smart, the outsiders. Yet, somewhere deep inside me, I had this quiet dream to speak English fluently, not to impress others, but to feel powerful inside, to own the language that once made me feel invisible in the classroom. I was 14 when I heard someone say, "Your subconscious mind is always listening." I didn't fully understand it, but it stayed with me. What if, I thought, I could train my subconscious mind to understand English just by listening? I started small. I downloaded podcasts, not grammar lessons or vocabulary lists, but real conversations. People talking about life, travel, business, emotions, anything and everything. At first, it was overwhelming. Words flew past me like wind through trees. But I didn't stop. I wasn't trying to understand consciously. I was trying to absorb, like a child does before they speak. Children listen for months before they ever say a word. Why couldn't I? So, I made a rule for myself at least 2 hours a day of passive English listening. No subtitles, no translations, just my headphones and English. I would walk, wash dishes, do chores, all with English voices in my ears. I wasn't studying, I was programming my brain. And over time, something strange began to happen. I remember it so clearly. The moment my subconscious mind spoke out loud. It was a regular evening. I was doing the dishes with a podcast playing in the background. The episode was about overcoming fear. I wasn't paying close attention, or at least I thought I wasn't. Then it happened. The speaker said, "You can either let fear control you or speak even when your voice shakes." Without thinking, I whispered, "Even when your voice shakes." It startled me. I hadn't translated the sentence in my head, I hadn't rehearsed it. The words just came out. It was like something inside had unlocked. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept repeating that sentence, not just for practice, but to convince myself that I had proof my subconscious was learning. I started noticing more moments like that. I would find myself predicting the next line in a podcast or guessing a word before the speaker said it. I wasn't translating from Urdu or Hindi. I was thinking in English, slowly, silently. And that's when I realized something important. Our brain learns patterns, not just rules. Just like we learn to sing a song by listening to it 50 times, our subconscious picks up language the same way, not through textbooks, through rhythm, tone, repetition, and emotion. So I changed my strategy. I created a daily subconscious listening routine. 1. Mornings, inspirational audio stories. 2. Afternoons, English vlogs or travel podcasts. 3. Evenings, TED Talks and audiobooks. 4. Nights, I would fall asleep with English affirmations playing softly, feeding my brain as I slept. I didn't try to speak yet, I knew that would come. Right now, my job was to feed the subconscious, not force the conscious. And it was working. People around me didn't know. I was still the quiet girl in class, but inside a whole new world was growing. It happened again, this time in front of someone else. I was at my cousin's house, watching a documentary on wildlife. Her younger brother asked, "What's migration?" Before I could stop myself, I said, "It's when animals move from one place to another, usually for food or better weather." He blinked, I blinked. I didn't plan that answer. I didn't translate it. I didn't think in English. I just spoke it. And that was the moment I knew. My subconscious was speaking for me. That single response gave me a rush of confidence. I had spoken without fear, without hesitation. It was automatic, like a song I'd memorized long ago. My brain didn't reach for grammar rules. It just reached into a deep well of stored patterns and repeated sounds and pulled out language. I went home and wrote in my journal. Today, I didn't speak English. My subconscious did, and it felt like flying. Here's what I realized that day. Our subconscious brain is faster than our conscious mind. It doesn't analyze grammar, it uses intuition. It doesn't ask, is this right? It just says it. When we listen long enough, we fill a giant mental storage box with real life English accents, tones, word combinations, emotions. And one day, when the box is full, it spills out. That's why babies don't speak until they've heard thousands of sentences. Then suddenly they talk, not because they studied, but because their subconscious was ready. So I gave my subconscious more to chew on. I stopped forcing speaking practice. Instead, I made these three rules. 1. No pressure, only exposure. Let English enter naturally. Turbulence is okay. Trust the mind to process before it speaks. 3. Or celebrate subconscious slips. If a phrase pops out, notice it and smile. Every day, I still played English audio while walking, cooking, even brushing my hair. And slowly, the fear of speaking disappeared. It wasn't about fluency anymore, it was about freedom. The freedom to express without fear or force. By now, English wasn't just something I practiced, it was something I felt. One day, while listening to a podcast about failure, the speaker shared how he was rejected 30 times before becoming a published author. His voice cracked as he said, I wasn't a failure, I just hadn't found my moment yet. That hit me hard. I paused the audio, not to repeat, not to write, just to absorb. My heart ached, not because I understood every word, but because I understood the emotion behind the words. That's when I discovered a secret. When you connect emotionally, your subconscious listens more deeply. I began choosing content that made me feel stories of pain, triumph, love, doubt, and hope. I cried watching a movie without subtitles, not because I caught every line, but because the tone, the pauses, the music of English made my emotions dance. That's how the subconscious works best. It learns through repetition, rhythm, and emotion, not through pressure or perfection, not through memorizing 1000 words you'll never use, but through hearing, I'm proud of you, and feeling it in your chest. That's what made English come alive for me. Not grammar drills, but goosebumps. So I made a playlist called Feel English, filled with motivational speeches, emotional podcasts, English movies with powerful dialogue, audiobooks with deep stories. Every night I slept with my earphones in, not to force learning, but to bathe my mind in emotion and language. And slowly my subconscious did what it was designed to do: learn through emotion, store through experience, speak through flow. I wasn't just learning English anymore. I was living it through feelings, stories, and the silent magic of the subconscious mind. There's a moment in everyone's journey when everything changes. For me, it was a rainy Tuesday in April. I had gone to a local bookstore, not to buy anything, just to breathe in the smell of old books and new ideas. I loved hiding in those aisles, lost in titles I didn't yet understand. While flipping through a book titled Dare to Speak, I heard a voice nearby. Excuse me, a tourist said, tapping a staff member. Do you know where the motivational section is? The employee looked confused. He didn't understand English. Something inside me stirred. Before I could overthink it, I stepped forward and said, It's on the third shelf near the self help section. Let me show you. Both of them looked surprised. Honestly, so was I. I guided the tourist, and we talked briefly about books, travel, and his love for Indian authors. As he thanked me and left, I stood frozen. Did I just speak English naturally, without planning, without fear? It was the first time in my life that English flowed out of me like water, not like a memorized line, but like my own language. I didn't translate in my head. I didn't worry about grammar. I just spoke. That night I cried, not out of sadness, but out of relief. All the silent hours I spent listening, all the nights with audiobooks under my pillow, all the days I felt invisible, they were not wasted. The subconscious had done its job. Fluency doesn't arrive like a guest. It grows like a garden you've watered quietly for months. This one moment gave me confidence, and confidence became a habit. From that day forward, I stopped saying, I'm learning English. Instead, I said, I speak English and I'm getting better every day. After my bookstore breakthrough, I couldn't stop wondering, how did this happen? Was it magic, luck, or was there real science behind how I became fluent in English just by listening? I decided to find out. So I did what I always do and I listened. Not to English this time, but to neuroscience podcasts. And what I discovered completely changed how I looked at learning forever. Subconscious memory, the brain's secret weapon. Every time we listen to something, our brain creates tiny neural connections, like threads in a web. These are stored in the subconscious mind, the part of the brain that processes without effort. Unlike conscious memory, which requires active attention and effort, subconscious memory works silently, continuously, absorbing patterns, tones, and rhythms, especially from repeated exposure. I learned that the brain is designed to learn languages this way. It's how we learned our first language as babies, not by studying grammar books, but by hearing sounds thousands of times before even speaking. And the best part? This method doesn't need us to try hard. It only needs us to expose ourselves again and again to natural language. The role of deep listening. When I listened to English podcasts while doing dishes or watched movies with my eyes closed, I was engaging in what neuroscientists call passive immersion. Over time, this activates the Broca's area and Wernicke's area, two key parts of the brain responsible for speech and understanding language. The constant listening trained my brain to recognize sound patterns, vocabulary usage, and sentence flow, all without me consciously memorizing anything. Why speaking suddenly felt natural fluency isn't about knowing all the words. It's about feeling the language. When my subconscious stored enough patterns through listening, my conscious mind finally had something to work with. That's why I could speak fluently that day in the bookstore. Not because I had memorized the words, but because they had become part of me, like a song stuck in your head. The takeaway fluency wasn't something I achieved, it was something I absorbed quietly, patiently, consistently. So if you ever feel like you're not progressing, remember this: your subconscious is working, even when you think nothing is happening. Trust the silence. Keep listening. In the next part, I'll share how I built my daily listening routine, what audio tools I used, and how I made sure English became the background music of my life. Once I understood how powerful listening was and how it reached my subconscious mind, I became very intentional about how I lived each day. I wanted every hour, every moment I could spare to become part of my learning process. So I asked myself one question: how can I make English the background music of my life? And that became my mission, rewiring my daily routine. I didn't change my schedule, I simply changed the language of my surroundings. Here's what I did: morning chores, English podcast; walking to the market, English audiobook; falling asleep, calm English bedtime stories; eating breakfast, YouTube motivational talks in English. I turned even the empty time of my day into gold, and without pressure. No studying, no taking notes, just listening. The more I did this, the more my brain adapted. I started noticing patterns, tone shifts, word combinations, and even began dreaming in English sometimes. The secret tools I used, let me tell you the exact tools I used which helped me so much. 1. BBC Learning English app, short daily stories with native accents. 2. Audible. I pick stories that inspired me like biographies and fiction. 3. YouTube channels. I subscribe to English speaking motivation channels like Epic English Stories. 4. Podcasts. My favorite, The English We Speak by BBC and Luke's English podcast. 5. Sleep talk tracks. I downloaded affirmations and calm voice narrations in English to play while I slept. At first, I didn't understand everything, but slowly I started feeling the rhythm. And once you catch the rhythm, the meaning follows. Noise into knowledge. When you listen long enough, something strange happens. What used to be noise starts sounding like music, and that music becomes meaning, and that meaning becomes memory. And one day, that memory becomes your own voice. That's what happened to me. I stopped feeling like I was learning English. I started feeling like English was learning me. The power of passive practice. Most people think if they don't speak English, they won't learn it. But I discovered the opposite. If you listen long enough, one day, English will start speaking through you. I live proof of that. In the next part of my story, I'll take you to the time when my listening practice unexpectedly turned into teaching opportunities. Yes, I went from being a silent listener to standing in front of a classroom. I had never imagined that one day I'd be the one teaching English, especially after spending years just listening in silence. But life, as I've come to realize, realize rewards consistency in mysterious ways. One day, my younger cousin asked me for help with her school English homework. I thought, sure, I'll help. But as I spoke, calmly, confidently, fluently, even I was shocked. Words flowed naturally. Phrases I had heard 100 times were now coming out of my mouth. It was like my subconscious mind had been recording and now it was finally playing back. Through me, confidence without a classroom, I started helping more kids in the neighborhood. Then a few mothers came to me and asked, "Can you teach our children too?" Before I knew it, I was running small evening sessions, not as a teacher with a degree, but as a mentor with real experience. And the best part, I didn't teach from grammar books. I taught them to listen, the way I had learned. We listened to stories together. We repeated them. We acted them out. My method was simple. Let your ears learn first, the tongue will follow. Why my subconscious memory helped me speak naturally. Here's what I realized about how subconscious listening changed my speaking. 1. Automatic grammar. I wasn't thinking about tenses anymore. I just knew what sounded right. 2. Instant recall. Words popped up in my mind naturally, like they had always lived there. 3. Real expressions. Instead of textbook language, I spoke like native speakers because I had heard them for hours and hours. That's the magic of subconscious memory. It absorbs first, then it releases when you're ready. No fear of mistakes. Because I had spent so much time listening, I had absorbed the sound of correctness. Even when I made a mistake, I could feel it. It didn't feel right. So I corrected myself without needing a teacher. It was almost like my inner voice was guiding me, and that voice was built by listening. I wasn't just learning a language, I was building a new identity. Your turn. If you're watching this, maybe you're like I was, afraid to speak, unsure about grammar, out of memorizing. Please stop doing that to yourself. Just listen every day for 30 days with your heart open. The change won't be loud, but one day your voice will whisper something beautiful in English. And it will be you. In the next part, I'll tell you about how I took this confidence to the national stage. Yes, a girl who once whispered English words in her sleep now stood in front of a TEDx crowd. If someone had told the younger me, the shy girl hiding behind curtains, silently mouthing English words, that one day I would speak in front of hundreds, I would have laughed in disbelief. But life rewards silent perseverance in unexpected ways. The email that changed everything. It started with an email. Dear Sania, we came across your unique story about learning English through subconscious listening. We'd be honored to invite you to share your journey at our upcoming TEDx Youth event. I must have read that email 10 times. Me? On a TEDx stage, I was overwhelmed, but not afraid, because I had trained my mind for years, not just in English, but in courage. Rehearsing with my old friend, the mirror, before the big day, I returned to the tool that helped me most, my mirror. Every night, I stood in front of it, spoke to myself, encouraged myself, corrected myself, celebrated myself. It wasn't just about the content of my speech, it was about the energy, the passion, the honesty. I remembered how English had once been a foreign sound. Now it was my tool to inspire others. The day I owned the stage, the auditorium was packed. I stood backstage, palms slightly sweaty, but heart calm. As the announcer said, "Please welcome Sania to the stage," I walked forward with confidence I didn't know I had, and I began. I didn't learn English in a classroom. I learned it in silence, by listening, by trusting the most powerful part of my mind, my subconscious. As I spoke, the audience leaned in. When I shared how English became my second soul, there were tears. When I ended with, "If I can do it from a small town without resources, then so can you," they stood up. A standing ovation. The power of deep listening. After the talk, so many young girls came up to me. One said, "Sanya, I used to think English wasn't for girls like us, but now I believe I can do it too." That one sentence was worth every silent practice, every whispered word in the dark, because now I wasn't just fluent in English, I was fluent in impact. A message to you. Dear listener, if you're still doubting yourself, remember this. Language is not learned in a rush, it flows into you, drop by drop, through deep, patient listening. So keep listening. Keep feeding your subconscious with the rhythm of English. One day you'll speak without thinking. One day your voice will surprise you. And maybe one day your story will light up a stage too. Why I became fluent. The science behind it. You followed my story. From confusion to confidence, from village silence to a global voice. But let's now dive into the real reason why this method worked for me. Why listening every single day, even without speaking, planted English so deeply inside me. Let's talk about the science of the subconscious mind. The subconscious is a learning superpower. The human brain processes millions of bits of information every second. But here's the thing. Only 5% of your brain is conscious. The other 95%? That's subconscious. It's the part of your mind that remembers how to walk, how to breathe, how to ride a bicycle, and how to speak once it's trained. When you listen daily without forcing yourself to respond immediately, you're feeding your subconscious the right patterns. English sentence structures, natural pronunciation, intonation and rhythm, vocabulary and context. Your brain absorbs it silently, storing it like a seed underground. Then one day, just like it did for me, that seed sprouts into fluency. Why passive listening works better than memorization. I used to try memorizing word lists. I forgot them the next day. But when I started immersing myself in English audio, everything changed. My brain began noticing patterns. I started predicting what native speakers would say next. I stopped translating from my language. It became natural. Here's the science. The reticular activating system, RAS, in your brain filters important information. Repetition through listening makes your brain say, "This is important," and it stores it permanently. The 3S subconscious method I used. I call it the 3S method. 1. Silence. I listened without pressure to speak. 2. Shadowing. I mimicked native speakers softly like a shadow. 3. Speaking alone. When I was ready, I practiced alone, out loud, freely. No fear, no judgment, just me and my growth. Repetition is the mother of mastery. One of the most powerful learning principles is spaced repetition. When you hear something again and again, spaced out over time, your brain strengthens that connection. I repeated the same English audios until my inner voice began thinking in English. Once English entered my subconscious, I didn't just learn it, I became it. Isan, my final words to you. You're not too late. You're not too old. You're not too poor. You're not too weak. Your brain is designed to learn, especially when you feed it the right way. So start today. Find 10 minutes of English audio you love. Listen while walking, eating, relaxing. Do it daily. Trust the process. Don't worry if you don't understand everything. Just like a child learns their first language through sounds and emotions, you too will become fluent naturally. One day, you'll tell your story, and maybe one day, someone will say, "Your voice changed my life," just like you're hearing mine today. With love, Sania. Listen deeply, learn slowly, speak confidently from your subconscious to the world. Subscribe to Epic English Stories for more real life journeys that will train your brain and touch your heart.